Hey, it's Al Angelo from A Plus Racing, and I'm coming to you in front of a live audience. Well, what does that mean? Yeah, well, I've got my Del Oro kids here, and I want to show them something about working on this car. We're wrapping up the end of the school year, and so I'm kind of like killing two birds with one stone here. I get to make a video for you guys, and it's also a learning experience for them. So we're filming first period here. But first off, before we get involved in what happened here, I want to introduce one of the students from my class that has a podcast. It seems like it's growing. It's doing pretty good. And I want him to tell you a little bit about it, and then we're going to go into what happened to our number 20 car. All right, so Sanchez, step up and you tell him what it's about.
So I'm one of the hosts of Think Tank Podcast. Just a little about it. We upload every Monday. We get a new guest on every Monday and just talk about the guest, interview them, ask them a few questions. So yeah, just a little bit about it. Go listen to it. It's on all platforms, Spotify, Apple. Yeah, it's a great podcast, and just putting out there, if you want to come on too, man, you're always welcome to come on.
Sanchez and I are in negotiation. So far, I'm up to like 1.2 mil to show up for the show and do a little something, but I'm trying to hold out to 1.5. All right, get back over there. All right, so as you can see here, our number 20 car was at Laguna Seca yesterday, and I know that I have been getting a lot of requests about, hey, so how do you replace the tie rod ends on a Miata? And I know I haven't answered back to you. Well, one of my subscribers and also the driver of the car decided he wanted to make sure that we made a video on how to replace the tie rod end. So he was up there with the front runners and hit one of them and probably came out on the bad end of the battle there. But anyhow, so Kirk, yes, Kirk, I won't say his last name, but Kirk is the one that did this modification to our 20 car. So we're gonna go ahead and show you what it's gonna take to fix it. All right. So here we go. First thing I gotta do, let's put it up in the air. And if you notice that this wheel is pointing pretty hard to the right, okay, you can see that it's hard right. The other wheel on this side, well, it's straight. Okay, so obviously there's something going on over there. Made it really interesting to try to put on the trailer. So, and get it off the trailer since it was going in every direction. So we'll get this thing up in the air, and I'll show you how to take out the inner tie rod end. I've already ordered a new one, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put this thing back together. This thing has to be at Sonoma tomorrow. Okay, so I got to pull that fender out or replace it and get this tie rod end replaced and align it today in order for this car to be able to go to Sonoma. Okay, so if you notice this part right here, yeah, that don't look right. Okay, so if you look at this one over here, nice and straight, everything looks great. This one here, not so much. All right, so we're going to end up having to take this off of here. We're probably going to have to take this cover off also. So when I get to that, I'll probably do a little pause. We'll take the cover off, and then we'll come back on how to take this inner tie rod in. But let's go ahead and we'll work on this part right here, okay? All right, so the first step that I do is I crack this nut loose right here, all right? So this is the jam nut for the outer tie rod end. This is the inner tie rod end that is bent. This is the outer tie rod end. Now, there's probably nothing wrong with that outer tie rod end, but you know what? I don't want to take a chance on these race cars and people who rent them out, so I'm going to replace the outer tie rod end and the inner tie rod end. I'm going to replace them both. So what first I'm going to do is I'm going to crack this loose, and that's usually a 17. If somebody's already been in here, sometimes there's different models. Okay, so that's basically it. I'm just going to crack that loose. I see somebody's been in here because they use safety wire as a Carter pin up here. So you could see, I'm going to move this so you can see it. All right, so here's where I'm working at right now. All right, so I'm going to be taking this off, and somebody put like aircraft wire up here instead of a Carter pin. So let me just see if I can break it off of there. There we go. Okay. You definitely got to put something here, unless it comes with a nylock. Sometimes I see them come with a nylock, and then you don't have to do that. All right. Okay. This is usually always a 17 also. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crack that loose. And I don't know if we're going to run into any problems here. It's usually a pretty straightforward job. Usually this thing just spins right off, but it looks like these threads might be a little messed up. So, you know, these cars are getting older. A lot of people have been in here. So now, this requires a special tool to take this outer tie rod end off. So I've got the nut all the way off right now, but I'm not going to take it all the way off right now. I'm going to go ahead and just thread it back on a few turns, and there's a reason for that. So they make a fork that goes inside of here and busts the lower ball joint, or not ball joint, tie rod end loose. It's a special tool. You can rent those at any rental place, or parts stores will rent them to you. They're not very expensive. But when I worked as a front end mechanic for Goodyear and Firestone, we never used that. There's another method you could use, all right? And it's this, okay? So on the class, it's very important that if you're gonna not use the special tool, that you know where to use this, okay? So I am not going to hit the top of the tie rod end. I'm not gonna hit the bottom of the tie rod end. I'm gonna hit the spindle right there, okay? So the tie rod end has a tapered shaft on it, and it fits into a taper hole in the spindle, and it's stuck in there right now. It's meant to do that. When you tighten up the nut, the two wedges fit together and it tightens it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a vibration in the spindle to where it pops it off, okay? And so I got to hit it just right in order to do that. And like I said, I don't want to hit the top of it because then I'll just mushroom the top of it. I'm just going to hit it right here on the side. All right, here we go. And there it goes. Okay, so it popped off. And there it is, all right? So now I can take this tie rod end out. But being that I'm gonna have to align it, I wanna get the alignment close, okay? So one of the tricks to getting the alignment close is to count how many turns it takes me to take this off, all right? So I wanna know so that when I go back together with the new one, and we're gonna end up replacing all of this, that I can count it and get it close enough to alignment that if I had to drive my car to an alignment shop, I wouldn't tear the tires off of it, you know, in a few miles. So we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 12, 13. Okay, so 13 and it's off. All right. So now we're left with just the inner tie rod end. So what I got to do now is I got to take this cover off. And what I mean, but I have to take the cover off, that means that I'm going to go get something to drink and one of the kids is going to take the cover off, probably Sanchez. All right, so we're going to take this cover off. That's going to expose the rack and the bellow so we can go to the next step, all right? And we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back. And yeah, I took the cover off. Those guys didn't help at all. So here's the tie rod end. We can go ahead and push our spindle off to the side. So I need to get this part off. So if we come in here and look closer, there's a little clamp right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that clamp down to here, okay? And then there's this one here. I really like these. I know that I see people using zip ties here, but the cool thing about these original Mazda ones is like sometimes you can get away with reusing them. And when we're at the track, we don't have any baling wire, but I like the wire method over the zip tie. The zip tie seems like they come off, they pop off, and then the boot comes off. All right, so now I should be able to just pop the boot out. Okay, and I'm gonna slide this down and expose that tie rod end, and there it is right there. All right, so it's got like a little metal clip right here. You could just see it. So I need to bend those little metal tabs out. So I'm just gonna use like a straight screwdriver, back to my hammer again. And these are little safety guys to keep it from falling off. So I'm just pushing them back. Sometimes when you get the new tie rod in, it comes with new ones, but a lot of times it doesn't, and we're forced to reuse the old ones. So I'm trying not to destroy it. Okay, and then back here. There we go. All right. And then this should just come off. If I could put this in there. There it goes. Okay, and then we just twist it off like that. So the Miatas are really easy. For one, the rack is right up here in the front, and two, that it doesn't require any special sockets or anything to take it off. So they're just easy to do. On some cars, you have to take this boot off, and you have to put this huge long socket over this in order to get it off, and you can rent that socket from like auto parts stores and stuff like that. But that's why I really like the Miatas. They're super simple. All right, so that's the inner tie rod end, and then here's that little clip that I was showing you, and we can still reuse this by just flattening these back out in case my new tie rod end doesn't come with one. Now, one thing about the tie rod ends, there are different ones. And the difference is this part right here, okay? I have a Mazda one right here. I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? This might be the right one. So if it's power steering, it has a certain thread. If it's non-power steering, it has a different thread. And then if it's an NB, it has a different size, okay? So there are like 3 or 4 different ones, all right? So if you got an NA, then, and it's non-power steering, that's kind of a rare one. You're gonna have a little harder time finding that inner tie rod end. The power steering ones are very popular, but the thread pitch is different. And then on the NBs, this is bigger. So it looks like this is the right one, okay? So one way I can tell about threads is if I go ahead and I put the threads into each other, I can see that they mesh very tightly. And so I know that this is the same thread. And this is an original, this is a Mazda one that I bought from Mazda. So we're going to take a moment to take this boot off, and I'm going to straighten out my little metal clip. And being that I already have the tie rod in, we can go ahead and start putting it back together. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so we got it all off. I got the boot off, all right, and I got my new tie rod in from Mazda, the Mazda tie rod in, all right, and I hammered my little clip a little straighter again, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on first. It's got a little notch that it sets in here like that, okay, and then I'm going to thread this on. Okay. And if you remember, like when we took it off, it wasn't like overly tight. You don't have to go crazy on tightening these things in place. It has the lock that locks it. So we're going to make sure it's tight. Now, if you think you need inner tie rod ends, not because yours was bent like this one, thank you, Kirk, but because it's wore out, let me show you something about that. So some people believe that you should replace the inner tie rod end if it flops around. And what I mean by that, okay, all right, is that, see how this one stays, okay? So they believe that if you put it up here and you let go and it falls down like that on its own weight, that it's no good. You know, I see that a lot online, and I don't believe that. The only reason why I replace an inner tie rod end if it's bent, like this one was, or if there's play in the ball and socket. Just because the thing moves up and down fairly freely doesn't mean that there's play in the ball and socket. So I only replace them if there's play in here, all right? I don't replace them just because I let it go and it goes like that, all right? I mean, after a while, the grease and they get worn in and everything, and they're you know, broke into each other. Yeah, it's going to fall down on its natural weight. But you know, it's entirely up to you. They're not all that expensive anyways. But anyhow, so I got that one tight, and now all I got to do is bend the tab over. And the back one's a little harder. Probably get it with my straight screwdriver here. So, you know what? I might just use a pry bar and bend it over. There we go. So it was back here, and I just pushed it down like that. Okay. So the next is the bellow. So I'm going to go ahead and stick my bellow back on. If your bellow's ripped, replace it. You don't want to get dirt and grime in here. It ends up ruining the rack. It ends up ruining, well, pretty much everything. All right. I've got my little clamper. So I'm going to about putting that back on like that. Okay. And you remember this was my original one, and I like using the wire, you know. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that around. Sometimes I cut it. I just use a smaller portion of it, especially if it breaks off. Okay. I think we're going to be okay on this one. I'm going to take it. Okay. I'm going to take a pair of pliers and just twist it up and get it snugged down. You don't have to be crazy on this, but okay. All right. Okay, that's good. All right. Okay, so now I'm waiting for the new outer tie rod end, which I ordered, and I can go ahead and put my nut back on, and it was 13 turns off. So I'm going to need to thread my new tie rod end on 13 turns. I'm going to put just back bar enough, okay, like that. All right, so at lunchtime, I'll go pick up the outer tie rod end and we'll finish this up. We'll throw it up on the alignment machine. We're going to have to do some work on that fender, and we're going to send this baby to Sonoma, all right? So I'll be right back. Okay. We're back, and we're going to wrap up this inner outer tie rod end replacement. So if you remember, yeah, this got bent, and we're going to replace this too. So we already installed the inner tie rod end, so I just have to install the outer one. Super simple, very easy. That was a Mazda inner tie rod end. I didn't have an outer one, so I went and bought one. O'Reilly's, import direct, lifetime warranty, so can't beat that. If I just hang on to the receipt, they also keep it on file. They usually treat me pretty good there. All right, so here's the new outer tie rod end, and it came with a carter pin instead of the safety wire that was on there before. So if I remember correctly, it was 13 turns. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, that should get me close on the alignment. All right, put that in there. Okay. Make sure I put my calcium nut on the right way. All right. If you got one where you're trying to tighten it up and it's just spinning and you can't get it tightened up, you could lower it down and put a jack stand here or a floor jack and pick it up and force that wedge into the spindle. Sometimes I have to do that too, but I think this one's going to be all right. All right. Well, remember I told you when they start putting funky sizes on here, all right, the factory was 17. Looks like this aftermarket one's a 19. That's one way I can tell when it's an aftermarket one. And we're going to tighten this thing pretty good. And then inside of the tie rod end, there's going to be a hole, and I'll show you on the old one. And I just want to line that hole up a little bit more, in case you've never done one of these before. All right, I'm lined up. Okay, so here's what I'm lining up. You see there's the hole here, there's like a series of holes going around here. When I tighten this thing up, what's going to happen is, this one's stuck, is that eventually I want the opening in the castle to line up with one of those holes so that I could put the carter pin all the way through. So I tightened this down until I saw one of those holes and that the castle nut lines up on the hole. So now I'm just going to take the carter pin push it through right here, okay? So come right over here, Mike, and take a look over my shoulder. I'm going to push it through like that, and then I take the end of it and I bend it over like that, okay? And so that's done. This is still loose because I need to do an alignment now. So now the deal is we're going to put the wheel back on, and we're going to put this up on the alignment machine and align it. Also, too, my second period class went ahead and massaged that fender out a little bit, and a gal in the class, she did a pretty good job. She got it all lined up. No, Kirk, you're replacing the fender. This is just temporary, okay? You still owe me a fender, all right? Plus all these parts, all right? Hey, so that's going to wrap up us repairing this number 20 car, trying to get it down to Sonoma tonight so it can be driven tomorrow. And I appreciate you chiming in. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why are you not subscribing to this amazing channel? Because this is giving you all the tips on how to fix your Miata as we break them at the racetrack, all right? Hey, I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.